Welcome to Messy Roots Videos. I'm excited to share with you all this coaching video. It's a group coaching session with 3 parents, and they are all a part of the Messy Roots Coaching Academy. In this session, you're going to see them kind of falter just a little bit, and at the end, I'm going to provide them with feedback on how they can improve. So I'm excited for you to see a video where I'm providing feedback to coaches in real time so that they will be able to improve. So let's check out the video.
All right. All right. And then, no, never mind. That ain't what I want. Okay, here we go. All right. And here we go. So Araceli, you can start now.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Hi, Barry. Good to see you
Hello.
again.
How are
How are
you?
you?
Doing
I'm
well.
good. Um, so what would be helpful for us to discuss today?
I thought today would be a good opportunity just to do just a general check-in.
Okay.
Juggling some things, I'm not sure what really resonates the most.
Okay. Well, fill me in. What comes to mind?
Some small things, some big things. My daughters are trying to convince me to buy a dog, and
Oh,
I'm not sure if they're ready for that yet.
okay. What else?
We recently had a pet pass away, and so this is how
Mm,
they want to resolve the feelings.
okay.
Mm.
If you don't mind me asking, when did your pet pass away?
The pet passed away about a week ago.
Okay, so this is still really fresh.
Still new.
Yeah. I'm sorry for your loss. That's really hard.
Yep. So it's tough for everybody. We're still
Yeah,
in our wound, so to speak.
exactly. Yeah. Um, You said small things and bigger things. Tell me about, would you consider this a small thing, a bigger thing?
I didn't realize I probably underestimated how big of a thing it is.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I probably classified it as a relatively small thing. Because our other animal had been sick for a long time and
Mm-hmm.
down this road anyway. So we've sort of prepared ourselves.
Sure.
Um, but the way the children are handling it, it becomes a bigger thing. Uh,
Yeah.
so big and small, but I
Mhm.
would say it's trending big now.
Um, what about other aspects of your life?
Mhm. Uh,
What are some other things that are coming up?
just it's finances is always a thing, just thinking about
Mm-hmm.
like juggling this or that. So we have, my daughter, I have 3 little girls. We're having that braces conversation.
Yeah.
Yep, we're having the braces conversation, and so that's a pile of money. And then we have some other things going on that we need to figure out. But it was more leisurely. So we wanted to take our girls to see The Wiz while it's still showing on Broadway.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but now my daughter, like when I say she desperately needs braces, is like, it's time.
Yeah.
And so, do we delay the braces purchase to go take everyone to go see a Broadway show, or do we
Sure.
pull the trigger on doing the responsible thing? Because that feels urgent. It feels urgent. And
Yeah.
but The Wiz is like, it's The Wiz. If you get a chance to see it on Broadway, you kind of go. It doesn't. It's not
Yeah.
like back again.
All right. No, adulting, right? Like having to always weigh.
But it's a good problem to have. Um,
Yeah.
but I feel like we can figure that one out.
Sure.
Uh, the summer feels like it's getting away from me, even though that's crazy to say. In June, it
Mm.
feels like when I look at my calendar, it seems like there's just not enough time for much. I'll be working a
Yeah.
little this summer. My wife travels for work, and I'm like, I can count on almost one hand the time that we'll have to like spend collectively as a family.
Yeah.
That feels big, like getting through a whole summer, you only have like maybe a handful of days to just be with your family.
Right. So if I'm hearing you right, spending time with family, spending quality time is important to you.
Very important.
Yeah. Okay. When you were kind of envisioning, a summer, or maybe if you had envisioned like what your summer would be like in that ideal state, tell me about that with your family.
I'm so going to the Wiz is one of those things, like being
Okay.
able to travel. We have family in New York, so being able to go up there and see family and also go see the show. I was like that was sort of like a bucket list item for the summer. But outside of that, I mean, literally just time at home together, just doing basic things like watching a movie, having dinner at home together. Like
Yeah,
our school, the school year, I'm a principal, and the school year is just hectic all year round. And so,
sure.
and then, like I said, my wife travels a bunch. So literally us having dinner together at the table is a thing. So if we can
Hmm.
get that, you would expect to be able to do more of that in the summer. And again, like I said, it's like, oh man, like when I literally look at the calendar, we're not all in the same place at the same time, uh,
Hmm.
consistently over the summer. It's just wacky that way. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. So I'm hearing a couple of things. And I'm sorry, I'm having construction done in my house.
Hmm.
Um, so a couple of things. I mean, I think so again, just the spending time with your family, really prioritizing those things that, seem to be simple, but yet when life comes, things come up, it's harder to get that consistency to just be able to spend quality time. And then you have this opportunity um to go and travel, and I mean you said it, it's on your bucket list, right? Like the whiz is a big thing. um and then we also have the other side, which is the more responsible thing
Yes.
that and so it sounds like, trying to weigh all those and figuring out, where do you and your wife, make how do you make these decisions?
Hmm.
um and so and then there's the dog.
Ah, yeah.
That's and then there's the dog, right? It's like, how do you fit in the dog if that's something that you are going to both seriously consider? But for
Yeah.
you, yeah. So I mean, as you heard me, just kind of mirror back to, is there something more that has come up for you that's like that we can touch on that you might want to explore, that we're after this conversation you want to have more clarity on?
That's a good question. Um, I feel like maybe just context, it always feels like there's a trade-off, like you can't have it all kind of thing. Like I want to have this, but I have to do this other thing.
Yeah.
This feels like that. Like in the conversation about the dog, it's like, well, you know, there's a maintenance part
Hmm.
like that my wife and I understand, but our children don't understand. And
Yeah.
so there's the maintenance part. Like I love animals. Like I love animals. And so, but now it's getting up an hour and a half earlier, all year round, every single day, unless we hire a person, to walk the dog if it's a dog, and do all the care that comes with that. And it feels like it's going to be a me thing and not a we thing.
Hmm. Yeah.
And like, which is, I would, if I was, retired, I could probably bite that bullet.
Right.
But it's hard enough to get up in the morning to like go to the gym and to do all the things and to get it all done. Um, so that's a big deal. That one right there seems like kind of it's a hard no for me, but it's like I have to factor in the fact that it's other people involved
Yeah.
and
And
feelings.
sure. And so when it comes to how you are thinking about approaching your girls, like if we took plan for both scenarios, right? Like, but let's just go with what I'm hearing you say. I think it's a matter of you already know the desire. It's not the right time to have a dog. And so now it's how do we frame it, right? How do we
That's
help our children understand?
mm-hmm.
Um, and they don't have all the nuances, right, of being an adult and the time resources, the time consumption.
Mm-hmm.
And so for you as a parent and how you want to show up and how you want to model, just having to make hard choices, what would you want your girls to see in you?
Oh man. So I have three. They all are obviously a little bit different in terms of how they take bad news. So I would kind of have to tailor it for
Yeah.
uh my the youngest is the most vocal. Um about what they all want a dog, but my youngest is the most vocal. My oldest is kind of in the middle, and then my middle child is like um a little bit more vocal. So they all kind of have a different thing about it, but like my youngest is the one I would have to win over first.
Okay.
And she's like her heart is into this thing. Like it's all about like hey,
Right.
we just lost a family member
Yeah.
and how I feel that hole is with a new animal that we can love on. And it's like, oh my
Right.
God, how do you say no to that? You know what I mean? Like that's the part. And my wife is sort of on my side, but not on my side.
Yeah.
So I want to say yes, but the responsibility of it is telling me no, right? Again, being
Yeah.
responsible. And is that always the right thing to do? Right. So the responsible thing would be like just say no and move on. But my heart is like, okay, this would fill a hole that I know my children are experiencing right now.
Yeah.
And it sort of connects to the braces thing because I'm like, I'm prepared to do the irresponsible thing and go see this Broadway show
Right.
and put my daughter's teeth on the line for a few more, eh, a couple months. She'll be all right. She'll be all right.
Right.
Bounce right back. But for this other thing, I'm sticking to my guns. So
Okay. So you're sticking to your guns just to make sure I'm hearing this right with the dog.
I think so. I think so. I don't know. I'm torn. Like I said, I'm
Yeah,
torn.
you're torn.
My
That's
heart,
yeah.
like if I have to do all the work, I don't see it happening. But if I could be convinced otherwise. But I don't want to even open
Hmm.
that door. To be quite honest with you, I'm like, the timing is not where it needs to be.
So again, as a parent and how you want to show up um for your kids and that emotional toll that it'll take on you, depending on the news that you want to give your kids, how like what do you want to prioritize?
Hmm. Them being heard,
Okay.
uh, and I think it's Randy's go at this point. But I want them to be heard.
All right. Yeah, no, thanks for sharing that, Barry. And that's a straightforward response. Kind of reflecting back what I just heard you say, sticking to your guns, but also acknowledging and wanting to create space for your kids um, to be heard. Um, and I was holding space a little bit. Um, if it's okay, before we move into some other conversation points, I'd love to share with you some great resources from an organization in my vicinity that I recommend often to folks around kids in grief. And it just has some tools and resources to support families and kids. So if that's something that's okay with you, I'd love to share that with you for you and your family, maybe to utilize after our session if that's something you're into.
That would be
Yeah,
wonderful. That's always useful. That's usually a blind spot for me. So thank you for that.
absolutely. Um, so now kind of pulling in some other things. The big space, which is the summer bucket list whiz joint or responsible braces for the girls. Um, Let me ask you this. What would it feel like to engage in the family summer bucket list whiz activity?
Oh man, it would be great because that's sort of one of the things we try to make time to do. Like when we do get to when we try, but we're on a budget, right? But when we make space to get together, we love to go to New York and see our family and eat well and go see a show, and so it's always a great time. And so it's been a sort of a tradition. Um, and then The Wiz is good because our girls have been watching this movies, like the actual movies, since they were around, right? And so to actually have a Broadway version of it, like when we go on road trips, it's that movie. You throw it in the DVD and they just watch it and they love it. And it's a weird movie. Like it's not it's definitely not Wizard of Oz, but it's great. It's like it's given a piece of the culture. So to see it on Broadway is just like going to take it to a whole nother level. So it feels, and once it's off Broadway, who knows when it'll come back. And so I'm like, it feels like a once in a lifetime thing. And then the braces, um, the why it's really important is because, like, self-esteem. I have daughters. I don't want her to be wrestling with that, image issues entering into the sixth grade. And the sooner we can rectify that, the better. Like, I'm not like that's, you know, like I don't want my children walking around with any of that, right? Especially young girls that are coming of age. So it's like that's the responsible thing. It'll happen. She'll get her. It just might be delayed a few months, and I don't know if that's even okay because factoring in her feelings, like if she could fix it overnight, because the braces process takes about 18 months, but the results you'll start to see in about 3 months. So if we really got into it right now, um, she would see results by the first part of the school year, and I think that would be, I don't, I'm not opposed to that. That feels like a big deal. So, but we're
Yeah,
not rich, and Broadway in New York calls a hunk of change. So,
yeah, definitely. And you kind of answered my next question just in your sharing, which was considering some of the trade-offs, braces over the summer bucket list. And I heard you say, um, you know, it's a it's a huge component of a touchstone in the family, right? It's tied to a lot of experiences, childhood growth, family experiences, the culture, and your overall value of time together, and the braces. There's room to move that, but there's also, you know, the reality of the need, and then also the consideration of your daughter's feelings. Um, so you're holding a lot, brother. You're holding a lot. Um, but I want to, prop you up just for, you know, dad props is all I want to say. And then
thank
I want to pose, yeah, I want to pose another question, which is, um, have you had a chance to talk to your family, or have you had a chance, yeah, to talk to the family about this current, like, I don't want to call it the dilemma, that's not the word, but have you had a chance to talk to the family about what you're rumbling with?
Not at all. And it's funny that it would be a great topic of discussion actually, because it hasn't because we've been such like go, 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 and the school year has just ended for us at least a couple weeks ago. My kid's been out of school for a couple weeks, and then I'm still going in and out of work. So like the converse because we don't sit at a table as it like we would have to with intention, hey, let's powwow together and make time to have the conversation. I think that would be a great thing to talk about, um, and put it out on the table and figure out how they're feeling about it. Because maybe I'm making a bigger deal out of it than it is. Um, but I have a sense that we would all be like, if they had to, if, I really want to ask my daughter, like, if she was comfortable waiting, would she be cool with that? I feel like she would say yes, but I don't want to make that decision for her.
Mhm.
I'm not going to make that decision for her. Because if she's like, I need it now, then we're going to go do that, and then I'll be driving Uber and Lyft and selling oranges on the side of the road and get uh, some whiz tickets.
Yeah, no. Um, yeah, so it sounds like we've identified a potential um, short-term goal, which
Yeah,
is what does it look like to make that convening happen? Um, so, what does that look like?
yeah,
Um,
yeah. I like the idea of having a conversation about it because, like I said, I've been wrestling with it, but I'm sure my wife knows, but the kids may not know. They may not even be thinking about it. Um, So that's a good thing to have, like making space to have that conversation. Good idea.
nice. Well, as always, to make a goal official, we got to say bye. by by when, how much and by when, right? Because
Put a
like you
date
said,
on it. You gotta put a
you've
date
already
on it.
clarified summer's running down. You
Oh,
ain't got a lot of time ahead of you.
well, so the good news actually, just reflecting back on like time together, we do have we're going to Florida this week for to visit family. And so my niece just graduated from college. We're going down to celebrate her. So myself, my wife and kids, my mother-in-law, my sister-in-law, my niece and stuff. So we'll all be together, you know, huddling up. So that'll be a great time to throw this out there, and see what comes back. So we'll have plenty of ample time this week. I can't promise you what day it'll be, but it'll be like maybe I mean, I guess we could talk about it on Monday because we fly out on Monday. So I can stamp it Monday. Monday. That'll work.
That's great. Yeah, that's great. Um, and another thing I heard you say, and I'm just pulling it forward and give you something to think about, but
Yeah.
it also sounds like um in considering your daughter's feelings and just there's an awareness and a compassion and just a space you hold for that in the back and forth that you've been sharing. I'm just observing that. So in addition to the family meetup, I'm curious if you think it might be worth just checking in with her straight up.
I think that's also a good idea. We try to do that. In fact, my wife and I, we take turns having like mini dates with our kids and stuff. So like we
Awesome.
have our daddy daughter dates, mommy daughter dates. So, and I'm definitely overdue with a daddy daughter date with my Parker. So I might see, well, my wife is kidnapping her today, so I'll probably get my turn tomorrow. So tomorrow, God, you'll be in the streets today.
Absolutely.
We divide and conquer. So she'll take her today, and I'll be home with the other two. Um, and so, but yeah, no, that's a really good idea. Just have some one-on-one time and have a conversation with my PK.
That's great, man. And I love that, daddy daughter dates. And I love the intentionality you and your wife have and how you approach what you do. That's phenomenal. So just kind of recapping as we come to a close with our session today, um, you know, you was able to, you know, come to terms on pet or no pet, at least currently, and just dealing with the grieving process. I'll share those resources with you post this session. We examined some of the trade-offs between the summer bucket list of the whiz and the braces, identified 2 specific goals, utilizing the family trip for the Florida to have a family conversation around that particular choice, and then utilizing an upcoming daddy-daughter date to just check in with your daughter around her feelings specific to braces and other things. So yeah,
Yeah,
great session, man.
as
Appreciate you
always.
sharing.
Thank you.
All right, good stuff, you all. Y'all completed your first group coaching session. Real quick, Barry, how did you feel about it? What did you get out of it? Did you get out of it what you needed to get out of it? And then we'll go to Araceli and Randy about how they felt about their performance as well.
Yeah. So the story itself was like a some true, some not true.
Yeah.
But the whiz one is definitely true in the braces. Like, so that is something that we've been wrestling with. So I haven't had the conversation with people. So that very great advice in terms of like, hey, let's just get in out in front of folks to hear how they feel about it. Is there, we could do it later, but there's a trade-off, right? So that was awesome. I really loved like the resources, like in the moment. I took a minute to like type that into my notes. Like, yeah, providing like real-time resources when the issue pops up, like, hey, this might be a thing. And then recapping sort of everything that we talked about and time stamping it. That's something I always forget, just putting a date on it. That was like, I love that. And then in the beginning part, just helping me ease through um issues without directing me in any particular way. I thought that was dope. um because like I said, these were real issues, but I was like trying to flesh it out a little bit more, and then I actually landed on some real issues. I was like, oh man, like, yeah, I am struggling with the braces thing. And we didn't lose a pet recently, but we're having issues with one of our pets right now. Like, we have a cat, and he's like spazzing out all over the place. And I'm like, well, we can continue to take care of it, but we might have to look at other options. And my children are not having that. They're like, we're keeping this crazy cat, and that's that. And I'm like, all right, well, just so but again, going back to like elevating my daughter's voices in the conversation in an intentional way. That's a big deal for us. Just I don't want them to not be heard, even if it's not a yes. I still want them to be heard and have voice in all the decisions. So it was good for me. It was great.
So good, so good. Araceli, how did you feel about the conversation?
Um, I I think it was hard because it was the discovery that felt different,
Yeah.
and trying to like pull. Um, and then yeah, so I actually don't know how I did. I feel like um, I was trying to get to the more emotional part instead of like coaching the person. I didn't want to, like, I'm trying to really catch myself and not going into problem
Mm-hmm.
solving.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where I was trying to elevate it to, how do you more the feeling aspect and prioritizing,
Mm-hmm.
um, how he wants to show up as the parent. I thought that that was a way to get me to move the conversation to like more of that depth.
Yeah.
Um, but I don't know how well I did
No,
in
I
doing in
think
trying.
that was actually really important for you to kind of like mention that. I think like, so whenever there's like, when a coachee doesn't know what they want to actually discuss and then come up with all of these different things, the interesting piece is like, okay, you just name all of, like, I think the one thing that you could have done that really kind of would have leveled everything was naming. Sorry, I almost choked. I don't know what happened, but was naming the fact that, okay, you just name you just name like 3 or 4 things is happening. Which one do you feel like is the most important for you, like the most pressing issue that you would like to talk about? And then let's dig deeper into that. I think like throughout both you and Randy's conversation, y'all were juggling 2 to 3 different issues at one time
Yeah.
versus actually just honing in on just one. And so then once you hone in on just one issue, the good thing from there is that you're able to use the other two as leverage to understand the habits and emotions that's coming up for that person. So like say if we went with the issue of the Wiz tickets and the braces, right? Like, well, what habit also is the same one or emotion is the same one that is persistent in the dog one, right? Like, and I forgot the other one, but like and maybe we need to really kind of discover that. And that would be coaching the person and not the problem. I think that with both, and I know Randy, you didn't get to share how you felt yet, but I think with both, you all definitely coach more of the problem, which again is not a problem all the way, but you want to coach the person. And in order to do that, you do have to lean into just one of the 3 things that he mentioned. And then out of the one of the 3 things that he's mentioned, how are those things really showing? How is that thing really showing up? And how is he able to solve that, right, for himself? And hopefully the things that he learned from you all discussing that one thing, he can apply to the other 2 things that he's actually dealing with. So like that's what I think that was the one thing that I was like, ooh, but I also didn't say that neither. When I was like, this is more of a general kind of coaching conversation. I also didn't share that maybe that after somebody brings up 2 to 3 issues, and even if a person does that when they have, say, like there's a person that is actually confident, about what they wanted to bring up, and then all of a sudden, they actually start talking about other things, right? You still do want to whirl them in the direction of like, how can we just talk about this one thing? Because if we talk about this one thing, how can that one thing and you learn about this one thing apply to the other issues that you actually dealing with? Because that would be coaching a person and not the problem. But then you also still do coach the problem at the end, right? With an
Right.
experience inclusion piece. Randy, how did you feel? And then I'll go back to like all 3 of y'all.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, wobbly knees felt like I was doggy paddling in the deep end. Just because it was we had a lot going on.
Yeah,
I mean, props to Arceli for the discovery phase because you was able to at least lay out where we were at. So I just tried to get in there and um yeah, just pare it down really so I feel like I was just moving. So but I appreciate the feedback, Mario, because when I reflect on it, yeah, it was coaching more of the issues or what was there and just I was able to get it down to 2 of the 3, right? Because Araceli closed the pet one because Barry closed it, right? Barry was like, yeah, I could let that go. So I just pitched the resources. Um, and that just comes from my trauma informed work and service work with young people.
yeah,
I just I'm grounded and centered in that. So that
yeah.
was natural. But
So
yeah,
good.
that part felt like I was just kind of moving. So I
Yeah.
think it was clearly like I was just focused on those things and trying to ask good questions and be in the awkwardness of first time in the space. So we got
Yeah.
through
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. No, and I thought that like again, this is your first group coaching session. And so, this is kind of getting your feet wet. And then what's really cool is by the time you get to like your 5th one, you're gonna really feel like you're more in a groove with it. You can be like, oh man, like, and you'll be able to actually see the progress that you made. I also think the resource was great. Now, one thing I would say in reference to the resource is to have it at the end, just to have it just at the end of the coaching conversation, just so that oftentimes when people try to do resources right in the middle or right then and there, one, it needs to be pressing that And I don't feel like it was pressing enough to have to do the resource right then and there. But it often does feel like that once you do a resource, the conversation kind of stops because like a resource somewhat seems like can come off as feeling like a solution to the problem. So it's like, oh, once I got the solution, then what else is there to discuss? You know, so you don't want to get caught in that act. You want to kind of just like focus on, okay, let me continue to talk about the issues that is persistent that with my coachee is dealing with. I have this resource. Let me put it in my pocket to bring it out later towards the end of the coaching conversation. Any
Maria, with
yes, yeah.
yeah, I do. This is where I'm not sure what part, like what I'm missing and why this just
Mm.
doesn't seem to make sense. But so like what habit is persistent with what Barry presented would I don't I don't want to open the coaching again, like the coaching session
Oh yeah.
again, but like when it comes to what he was talking about, so like what would be I
Make
guess I
that
don't
happen. Well, then you what there's two things that can happen. One, you could ask even a coachee, right? Like what habit do you feel like that is showing up here? That whether that habit is good or bad, right? And what barriers are you that's being presented to you that's preventing you from continuing to do this good habit or bad habit, right? Because again, habits can be good. Uh, that would be the one thing. And then the second thing is like, I would like, if ever you don't know, I always ask. I always do. Because it's not coaching is not a guessing game. You know what I mean? So it's like, well, what habit do you feel like? If I can't figure it out, let me just ask you instead, right? But like,
and is this at the onset?
yes. Yep. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And so like, and so, yeah, so the second thing but I would say is his habit is really thinking about like how does he contribute? Like part of it is like how is he contributing to memories um for his kid and like what like how is he like playing a role in that? Memories in all three facets, whether that's braces, the whiz, or the dog, right? Like all three of them are like I don't like with the braces. I don't want my child to have a memory in their adolescence of maybe being bullied or picked on because of their teeth. You know what I mean? And I'm stepping into an image. A memory of the Wiz because this has been like a strong movie that they have seen and the Broadway play is good. I went to go see it 2 weeks ago. I would say go do that. but like keeping the memory, keep having those type of memories. He even mentioned going to Florida, right? Like having a memory, feeling like the summertime was not enough time to be able to capture these moments with his family, right? All of these things really dealt with like these moments and these memories that he were actually experiencing, and then what habits or what things was he doing, right, to be able to either contribute to them having more memories in a safe way that's being more responsible so or not so like it's like when you want to create these memories right like what do you like when you thinking about like the memories that your children will be having how do you make these decisions would be like a good question right because part of it is like what is your decision making in this? Because either and Randy kind of almost got to that, right? Like having a conversation with, what are these steps? Even Randy was even trying to provide a resource around it, but you know, neglecting to name it really kind of didn't serve his purpose because again, if we're going to talk about memories, then now that's going to apply to all of the issues that he dealt with, whether we talk about the Wiz, whether we talk about the braces, whether we talk about the dog, how he tackles wanting to create memories for his family and kids, you know.
So I think that's where I was trying to go when I paraphrased about quality time is important.
Yes, yes.
But
I
I
thought you
could
was
have
getting there.
yeah, I could have taken it
Yeah.
farther
Yep. I
or
thought that's
like more
what
specific.
Yep. Yep. That's where
Okay.
even in the notes that I sent you, I kind of almost like redirected it, because it was like at first you was just, you know, kind of, okay, now what else? And what else are you doing? But then you went that direction. I said, oh, okay, wait, she's going in the direction that I think she needs to go in based off of, you know, the notes that I was about to say. Hey, you need to choose like one issue, but it sounded like you were going there for sure. But really not having that, in my opinion, that confidence to just like, let's
Yeah.
just do it. Let's just go in that direction. Yeah.
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 I just wanted to add, Araceli, I think because I have in my notes here, I was able to name the value of creating experiences. Like I noted that from
Yeah.
what you did in the onset. Um, I wasn't able to pick that up. And also, I wasn't able to get to the habits piece. Those were just, I held that value and based my questioning from there. But um, as we're talking, it sounds like
Mm-hmm.
shifting the other way, right? I
Mm-hmm.
knew the value, we had identified the value, and just going deeper into the value and the habits could have been an
Mm-hmm.
additional approach.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, like one of the things that I think is that's such a I tell you, that's such a cheap shot kind of like question is, what do you typically do when X happens? Right? Like that's always one of the best questions to ask, because
Mhm.
it helps you to verify whether perhaps like your hypothesis of what you're thinking perhaps the habit could be or the issue that they're dealing with is valid or not. So you can say, what do you typically do when you're like, I would lean back into what Eric Seti was saying. What do you typically do when you're trying to create habits with I mean not sorry, what do you typically do when you're trying to build quality time, have quality time with your kids, right? He could have said, oh man, like you know, sometimes I'm a little bit irrational, right? Like I sometimes I don't think my way that I need to, because I want to create like have this strong quality time, right? Like I want to be able to have like these moments. So when I'm thinking about it, I'm like, I want to do it in the now. I want to, you know what I mean? Like I'm thinking about like you know, so that's a good cheap shot question. Whenever like you're lost in a conversation, like what do you typically like based off whatever the last thing they said, what do you typically do when that happens though? You know what I mean? Like let me get back on track. Maybe I even got, you know, I have ADHD, so like maybe I got distracted because a bird came on my patio or something like that, right? So I'm like, I don't know where we at in this conversation, but let me ask this question so that maybe perhaps like I could know where we're at. Yeah. Um, and then there's this document too that I shared with you all before. Um, but it's really fun. This is in a resource document, but like this sometimes help you definitely with an issue like this, right? Like when you're coaching a problem, coach the person in the problem. Because we start off coach the person, not the problem, but you do coach the problem, right? And so like when Barry mentioned, you know, all of these things, then obviously then we choose one. The problem is, you know, he's debating on whether to do the wheels or the braces, right? And then you know, one of the questions that you really could ask within this, you know, what is the solution? Like, what would you like to really see within this problem, right? And then part of like how you could get to the habits and emotion is that like, well, what is preventing you right now from being able to get to that solution? Because that would then help you to identify also the habit or emotion that they are exhibiting, right? And then we go to like what are then the 3 or 4 questions that we could be able to ask to help us sift through them really cementing that this habit what is contributing or hindering them from actually achieving their desired solution, right? Because we don't even know like I mean, it sounds like Barry wants to also go to the Wiz, which I mean, I think you should. But like, but you know, it's like, well, what do you actually want to be true? And then it almost sounds like really what's really true, what really he was kind of almost been around the bush in is that what really is true is that he just want to have like these strong memories with his kids. He even said, even if it's just like, you know, sitting and watching a movie together, right? So how are we then creating those memories, right? Like how are then we creating that quality time? How are we creating those moments? What does that look like for you? Why are you not doing it, right? I love that one of my friends, this is me coaching a problem though right now, but one of my friends, he mentioned that um he'd be so surprised, like he'd be wanting to go to like these big elaborate things, right? Like he was wanting to take his kid to go see the Lion King, and he had actually blew his tire out and on the way there, and he was sad actually. I actually cried in front of his kid because he's like, I really wanted to go see this movie. Like, da, 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 this would have been a great moment. I love this. All of these things, right? And his son was like, I mean, I'm having a great time spending time with you right now. Like, yeah, the Lion King would have been great, but I'm having a good time with you right now. Just waiting for AAA. You know, it's like sometimes you just never know. Like and I hear this all the time. I'm not a parent, but I am a dog dad, and sometimes that is true. Sometimes I'll be wanting to take my dog in like these elaborate walks. Like, oh, we haven't went here. He wasn't able to smell this piss on this dang on trail, so let me go. Let's do this new trail. Like this is new piss. And sometimes he literally just wants to just go for a walk and spend quality time like with me. Even if it was just around the block with the same piss he was smelling the whole time, right? Like sometimes as like adults, we think we have to do like these things. And so that's my habit too. I have a habit of wanting to make like this big thing right out of stuff. And consider that that's the only quality time that's the true quality time. That's the true memory, right? When it could have been like the biggest thing that they remembered was doing a movie night in the backyard that cost y'all $15 because y'all got, you know what I mean? Like, but you were stressing about the wins and braces. You be like, oh my God, like, why did I even do this? So like, yeah, that's what I saw. Any thoughts, anything come to mind in there? I know that you didn't have an opportunity.
No, I mean, those are all facts, man. Like that's just having that deeper conversation now about like the memories. Like I didn't even think about it that way until you mentioned it. I
Mhm,
was looking at it like we want to do these things, and then I'm thinking about the money aspect and the timing. But the thing that sits above all of that is this desire to have lasting memories. And I'm like,
mhm,
that is true. Like I do want because they're in this. It's funny. I had a conversation with a relative recently, and he was like, "Love up on your girls now because they're like 10. My daughter's 11 and 12, or 11 and 10, but they're getting older, and you're going. This window closes before you know it.
mhm.
Like that's what. And so the memories thing is like really. It's like it's right here on me. It's like you want to have these memories because they're going to be the opportunity is closing. So that
Yeah.
is really deriving some irrational decisions
No, no,
that I
that's
will
the word
never
I
be
was trying to say.
making.
Irrational, right? Like you get irrational when you're thinking about like these big old memories. But then, like the good thing is you have some good habits already. So how can we lean onto
Yeah.
those good habits, right? Like one of the things that you mentioned was the daddy daughter dates, right? And your wife also does the same thing, right? Like and I even saw both Randy and Araceli both like, yes, that is really good to do. I saw the change of emotion in their face when you mentioned it, like, oh, that is so nice. So it's like that could be the one thing that they remember this summer. Like, yeah, the real was good, but this is the thing that I really like. Or it could be, the train ride up to New York. Like you just never know with people, right? Like when somebody said, like my mom, even when I talked to my mom, she was like, "Dang, you remember that?" I'm like, "Yeah, that was one of the best like things that we've had at church." I mean, we was talking about church and like vacation Bible school. And I was like, that was so fun. She was like, you remember that? Like, I thought you remember this. I'm like, no, like that part was my favorite. You never asked me. You never asked.
Exactly the conversation.
Right. And Randy brought that out in a coaching conversation. He said, like, he talked about, you kind of, he brought that out of you around like, when can you have this conversation, with your family and having a family member? Maybe that's a new habit that you could create is having like these family conversations versus it just sticking in your head and making these decisions just yourself without their input.
That's real, and that's
Winning
real.
the youngest one to make winning the youngest one.
I loved
Yeah,
I did love how Randy framed it too. Like
Yeah.
you asked, have you had a chance to talk to the family about what you've been rumbling with? Like I just thought that was like such a
That's the
beautiful
Brene Brown.
question. Yeah, I
I'm
know.
borrowing that from her.
Exactly. I'm like, oh, Renee, speaking your language. That's Yeah, but it was great to have you
Okay.
like bring in that just that
I appreciate
word because it just, I mean, I know she describes it really well too.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, the rumblings are happening in your head. It's not a bad thing. It's not, it's just is. It just it makes it very neutral and
Mhm.
almost playful, it seems
Yeah.
too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. And I
Yeah.
think this is cool too, because I feel like Mario, you identified the pivot, right?
Yep.
Barry's pivot as we've been talking.
Yeah.
And I just acknowledge that like one of the things that's real in these simulations is like we haven't established the trust or those things. Because I do feel like that piece that we're chewing on
Mm-hmm.
uh may move a little different when you actually like, if Barry and I have been in that coaching relationship for a while.
Mm-hmm.
This was new information, right? Like I just learned about that as far as like how he shows up as a dad and these values he holds, and
Mm-hmm.
those are significant,
Mm-hmm.
and create an element of respect and mutual respect as a dad too. But like I feel like with some of that established relationship, we could have at least putting myself in like a whole coaching scenario. I feel like I may have been able to naturally move better versus like,
Oh
let
yeah.
me get through these things. Where am I at in the framework? Let me have some good questions because Mario looking at me, right? But
Yeah.
because yeah, I feel like that would have been more natural. Because even I'm feeling exactly what Barry talked about with his paper, where I'm like, damn, I feel that right now because my daughter's 13. We
Yeah.
we we passed that, and now like I sneak time with her on drives to the store or these things, and I let her lead those things. The similar, I'm like, I gotta have time with my baby girl, so I'm gonna make this shit happen, and then she'll
Yeah,
be like,
I,
Yeah. Yeah, no, that is so real, This is really, really good because it really did help. I love how, again, you provided that resource. I think both of y'all connected from a parenting standpoint. I thought y'all may have leaned into that, or I wanted y'all to lean into that a little bit more. And as a coach, we are allowed to be vulnerable and be like, listen, I experienced the same thing. I'm still trying to figure it out. And both of y'all have kids, So I'm like,
We've had braces.
you got
yeah, we did the braces thing
Doing
last
good.
year.
the
oh,
brace,
see,
you
last,
did the
feel my
braces last.
pain.
last year, yep.
Wow, wow. So you know what it's like all
We
through.
had, we had this conversation for real, like in real life last summer. The family, like we had to sit down and be like, look, we got to invest in this. Summer vacay gonna look different this year. We need to we need to come to an agreement.
I did Invisalign, and that was even, I mean, that was a good amount of money too. My
He
yeah,
sat us down for the consultation, and it was like you could do the Invisalign versus the traditionals are about the same. So
yes.
so
Yeah. But Invisalign hurt a little bit more, which is wild. Yeah, because them first three trays is bloody. But it's okay. Um but
Yeah, we
that
didn't we didn't get that option with my little girl. They was like, her situation is braces.
oh, yeah, that does, that can happen.